Yeah.
Okay, so yes, I'm going to give you an overview of the Institute of Pacific Islands Forestry. We're known as IPIF, and we're located in Hilo on Noello Street, up the hill from Imiloa, if you haven't been to our office. And this is just wanted to let you know what we're a part of, our bigger agency. We're part of the Pacific Southwest Research Station, and that's the purple area you see on the map, or not the lavender, but the more blue-purple area. And we are part of the research and development branch of the Forest Service. So I think there's eight areas, stations similar to PSW across the United States. You can see also as well as in Puerto Rico. So we are part of the California, which makes it challenging for us sometimes because California has a lot of its own problems and they're much bigger than us. So we have to have very loud voices out here. Our mission and region of responsibility, we primarily do research and education and demonstration to provide scientific and technical information to our land management resource partners because we don't have national forests in Hawaii yet. We work primarily with partners on partner land bases. You can see our area of jurisdiction is quite large, lots of islands and lots of different languages and cultures. Let's see here. Just to give you a little bit of history, we started officially in the 1950s, although we had been sort of ad hoc consultants since the early 1900s to help Hawaii with forestry issues. And in 1957, when we were formally established, were to establish a forest center in the territory. Hawaii wasn't a state at that time, for the purpose of investigating and assessing our forest lands. So primarily what was focused on that time was watershed management. As most of you recall, there was a lot of deforestation in all of the mountain areas. And so there was a lot of, unfortunately, non-native species that were brought in during that time that now grace most of our watersheds. Some look at forest disease and a lot of interest in silviculture, not necessarily of native species, but of making money on forestry in Hawaii. And for those of you who've been in the Forest Service for a long time, that's a very young Paul Scowcroft in that picture. He retired, I don't know, five or so years ago. In the 1970s to 90s, we were part of the wave of the environmental movement, demanding preservation of Hawaii's endemic flora and fauna resources. This is when the NARS program started and a lot of the conservation programs started. We were mostly doing, at that time, they were called noxious plants, and in endangered species research, starting to look at ecosystem level approaches to looking at our forests. At that time was when the rapid ohia decline or ohia dieback was occurring. And so there was a lot of resources brought in to study that. And that's really when we first started working out in the Pacific Islands doing forestry research. And a lot of that initial work was mapping, really mapping forest resources in these islands. And some of those maps are still very valuable and used to this day. In the mid-90s to about 2010, I wanted to mention at the last slide that as we were coming out of the 90s, we were a very small unit. And when I came on board in 1999, there was one scientist. We were in very small offices at DOFA, and I think the staff was definitely, under 10 folks. So we were really at the on the chopping block, you could say, if we were necessary. And so they rallied at the Forest Service and got someone in that really was a leader in tropical ecology. Jack Ewell is pictured there. You can see, and he really came in and took everything to heart, and he got funding for our building, which you can see below in that picture. He got funding to hire new scientists. That's when about 3 or 4 of us that are still at IPIF were hired. He formed programs and established relationships with a lot of new key partners. So we then started focusing on restoration, invasive species, wetlands, and then a forest management process to work out in the Pacific. In 2006, we had the establishment of the Hawaii Experimental Tropical Forest. These are state managed lands at Lapahoihoi and Puvawa, but there's an overlay of an experimental forest. So we work together with the state to oversee these landscapes. And then also in 2006, we all moved into our new facility, and we had sort of a peak in staff numbers at that time. We had some challenging times following that. We got a new director at the station who didn't like place-based programs and wanted everything to emphasize programs. So we were all dissolved into these programs together with all the California scientists. They tried to get us a name change, but thankfully that would take an act of Congress, and that didn't happen. So really trying to strip Hawaii as a unique location. And I'm so glad we made it through that, because I think that would have been devastating. We also had a lot of R5 staff at our office prior to that, Region 5. So we had a forest health specialist. We had other specialists from the region working together under us. We had a Pacific Island forester. That all got sort of axed at that time. And there was a huge reduction in staff through attrition. So people were retiring and we weren't getting replaced. So we really dropped down in staff and budgets again. So as you can see, it's up and down with these federal agencies. And then 2018 to current, really focusing on internal leadership. That's when we decided that we had enough expertise that we could internally lead our institute. And I was sort of voluntold that I would be the one to do that for the first time. And so we went back to sort of a place-based One Forest Service approach. And we've been trying to work really closely with our partners, both within USDA and outside of USDA, and came up with these new research themes that we have here. And oddly enough, or much to our surprise and benefit, that the PSW Pacific Southwest Station has now, we just adopted a new charter and have now gone full circle, and they're coming back to place-based programs as well. They see how it's worked so well in Hawaii, and they're moving towards that in California. So I'm really happy about that. We're getting a lot of new staff right now. We're excited and working with a lot of different programs. And just to give you some just accomplishments that we've done over the last couple of years, we're developing decision support tools, and maybe some of you have been contacted about that. Fire is definitely going to be a component of the decision support tools for South Kohala in particular. A big emphasis on ROD. There's been quite a bit of funding coming in for that, looking at the relationship with ungulates, and as well as developing an ohia resistance program. A lot of effort on biocontrol. That's it, bringing in a natural agent to sort of deal with some of our biggest invasive species issues. Right now, the mellostomes are coming on board, and we should have an agent in Hawaii fairly soon for Myconia and Tibutina. Excited about that. Expanding and operationalizing Tectococcus for strawberry guava control across the landscape. We have forest dynamic plots that we've been measuring. We did a census, completed a third census recently. Those take about a year, so it's a lot of work. We're doing a lot of work in the Pacific, including sea level rise, fire dynamics, food security, agroforestry, low input restoration. We work together with FIA to do the forest inventory and analysis, the census of Hawaii's forests. And they just completed a second recensus, so we're excited to get those results out. We work with hybrid restoration concepts towards successful, restoration of areas that are highly degraded, and we had a successful revision of the Hawaii County tax law for restoration and conservation using some of these techniques. We're also the home of Hala Ohia, which is a Hawaiian Lifeways program. And exciting for this year is we have some new hires, a forest pathologist, a social scientist, science delivery specialist, and an entomologist who's going to be supported by R5 is going to be housed at our office as well. So we're really excited to have these new folks in the office and in areas that we definitely need expertise in. So that's all I wanted to say to you guys. I hope that was what you wanted, Nani, or if I gave a good update, and just want to thank all of our partners, including PFX and everybody, for you know, the being engaged with our work and our mission.